Doing, sis?
And we are up live.
All right, all right, all right.
Let me just take care of one thing over here real quick.
All right, all right, okay. All right.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, here we go. Shoot. I'm trying to share this. I'm failing at it. It won't pop up on my feed on my phone. Give me 1 second and we can get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're just getting set up here. And if you can share this, we would appreciate it. And if you have any questions, there we go. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat. We will answer those questions as we go along. So today, well, let me start by saying this. So for the month of May, this is like the second year that I've kind of been focused on this, and it's just kind of surrounding with Mother's Day being in a month that's usually filled and focused on women. And so I wanted to take some time this month and just really help encourage and empower other women to either buy a home, like it could be the home that you're living in, investing in real estate, no matter what it is, just having the courage, or be encouraged to do this. So, Angel, you're always making big moves. You've done a lot. So can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay. Yep, I am Angel Jacobs. I have born and raised here in Cleveland, Ohio. So, this year I started to do some investing in real estate. Started to think about it actually a couple of years ago and try to figure out what a plan was, but didn't start to manifest until this year, last year actually, so 2019. So I'm really excited. I get a little tickled in my spirit every time I hear somebody say real estate investor because I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, me. So it's really dope.
Yes, that's you. So would you mind, you don't have to say where you work, but can you just share with everyone kind of like what you do for a living?
Yeah, no worries. Most people who know me, so it doesn't bother me to share. I work at Dealer Tire. I work in human resource. I support a recruiting team. I have actually been an HR professional for the last probably over 15 years. That's been my trade of profession. So human resource is kind of what I do for a living, specifically in recruitment. So I am typically out either managing a recruitment process or in-house managing a hiring process for Dealer Tire.
Okay. So you didn't have any experience with real estate prior?
Absolutely none, sis. Zero.
Okay. All right. So what made you get started investing in real estate?
So originally, it's always been a interesting thought. Like you hear people talk about it. Most often you hear men talk about it. So there's of ladies at the table. So what I found over time is that men were talking about it in such a way that it ended up being conversations about building wealth for their families. I was like, and my brother used to talk about it in such a way of creating streams of income. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I never really heard a lot of women talk about it. And again, for the most part, women are not always invited to the financial table. So we don't always get involved in these conversations. So I started to do a little bit of research myself. And then I found out that it's a ton of us do have a lot of knowledge about the industry from a lot of different angles. And it became more and more intriguing. And I decided that I was going to try to obtain this wealth idea, this stream of income for myself and my family as well. So this is going to be an arena that I was going to try to research and figure out how it worked.
Okay. So can you tell us how many properties do you own?
I own 6 currently.
Okay.
And so I'm really excited about that. Godspeed, blessing. I am so grateful. So I own 6 properties now. It is my goal to hit 9 in the next year and a half.
Okay. So are you a fix and flip type of investor or a buy and hold investor?
Great question, sis. So I am currently a buy and hold investor. So I currently purchase properties. I do a little bit of renovation inside of what I've already created as my all-in budget, and I am then becoming a landlord, if you will. I'm holding those properties and putting tenants in it for some cash flow.
Okay. So what are some of your favorite things about investing?
So the most favorite thing about investing, and this probably comes from my love of just being in the field of human resource, is the absolute people part of it. I have, including yourself, a ton of wonderful people who I have made connections with, who have helped me, who have guided me in the process, who have watched me bump my head and helped me, mend the wound, if you will. But the people part of it has been the most rewarding part of it. And then without question, we wouldn't be here if we were talking about cash flow. Cash flow is absolutely the second most best thing about it. It creates a stream of income for myself that I have now decided to push a little further so that I can get to a place where I can fire my boss.
Right, I love it. Operation. How many people have that on their goals? Operation Fire Your Boss.
Operation Fire My Boss. It has been in process for a little while longer. I got a few milestones that I need to jump. I got to secure, as the young folks say, a few more bags. But Operation Fire My Boss is my ultimate goal. What I realize about the real estate arena, that it allows me to chase freedom the way I would like to chase freedom. So it is now actually beginning to clash. And you and I have had some conversations. This thing I need to do to secure the bag over here with my real estate investments, and I'm clocked in at work, or I got to do it on a lunch break, or I got to run over here and I got to run back here. And it's, at this point, I've involved myself enough to where they are beginning to touch heads a little bit. So it's time for me to elevate my game some and put Operation Fire Your Boss into action more expeditiously.
So your goal is to bring in enough income to support for a future savings for retirement, or just for to maintain your daily lifestyle of just your everyday bills, or just kind of a mix of both?
So there is actually, I have mapped out for myself, planning is everything. I've mapped out 3 different phases of this for me. Real estate plays a role in all 3 phases of it. If you do any research, you will find that those who have acquired a level of wealth for themselves and their family have invested in real estate in some way. Allows for a lot of people to become financially free and to be able to begin to build wealth, if that is to take care of your daily living, which is definitely Operation Phase 1. So that, because that's the only way that you get to fire your boss, right? You have to be able to replenish your current income and do it consistently and have a sustainable amount of money to take care of the style or quality of living that you currently hold current day. And then you have to start talking about, well, what is your futuristic plan in terms of retirement and extra things that may happen? So that involves a different level of real estate. So in my personal plan, I've outlined 3 different stages for me to graduate and navigate through that involve real estate to some degree, and all of them that would take care of me firing my boss, Operation Fire My Boss, then take care of my retirement thought process, futuristically speaking.
Okay. So, would you say, what gave you the motivation to just get started? So I think when I talk to a lot of people and they're stuck in the very beginning stage of kind of taking that first step, that first action. Although I do feel that sometimes it's because of limited resources that they have. So maybe they just have, if it's like $50,000, this is my life savings, this is all I have, and if I mess this up, I lose everything. So I do feel that that is a part of what's causing the slow reaction. But obviously, if you said in the beginning, you work in human resources, and this was something that you had not done before. So what made you feel comfortable with kind of stepping out? And let me just say this and kind of point this out. Do you have, or did you have someone in your life, a husband, a brother, or someone to like hold your hand and make you feel comfortable through every step?
So those are great questions. So no, I am single. I do not have a husband. I knew absolutely nothing about real estate prior to jumping off of the bridge here, as I say to my but fear is a factor. Fear was a factor for me. So let's be honest, fear was a factor. But fear will hold you in a place, and it held me. So again, I had been thinking about real estate a couple of years prior, and then I began to try to research it a little bit to find out, a little bit more about it. And I still stand still. That year had passed, nothing. I just was still researching and figuring it out, or, trying to get some more information. And then another year and a half had passed. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do here? So the two most valuable things that I can say is that you need to have a plan, right? You do to paper. You need to outline it. It needs to make sense on paper, what your steps are. So when you go out to research this thing, you need to figure out what the terminology is. Like when people start talking about real estate, what are all those words mean, right? Out what those words mean. And I literally was just simply at home making out a dictionary of Post-it notes. Like, what do these words mean? Where do they fit in the puzzle? And then who do these words belong to? And then you have to start to figure out, because at some point you're going to need a team because none of this is by yourself, right? None of this is by yourself. You're going to figure out who else has a hand in the pot, right? So when you start figuring out all of those terminologies and people start talking about inspections and home loans and different kinds of fundings and buying and holding strategies and all these different kinds of things, you want to make sure that you have an understanding of what those mean. And then who does those things belong to, so that you can have a connection. And then I started just building some relationships. Up. People started having events. I done blew down on several of yours. You just start to show up. You start to show up. You try to figure out what your angle is in this. Real estate is a huge arena, as you know. And so you have to figure out what part of this arena are you going to dive into. And then the fear thing it's going to be everybody's. Everybody's going to have some level of fear. Some are going to be a little less fearful than others, but if it's foreign to you, like it was foreign to me, you're going to have a little level of anxiety that happens. At some point after you create your plan, no, sis, you got to just jump. After you have created your plan, you have to look at your plan and say, this is as best I'm going to get in terms of understanding the plan. And so now it's time for me to execute. Time to step one, let step one lead you to step two. You're going to learn some things. You're going to bump your head. Let that take you to step three. And then when you start getting a little bit more anxiety and you can't figure out what's going on, you go back to the plan, right? That's important to have the script, to have it written out, to know what you want to do so that you can go back to the plan, so you can figure out where you are in process. So in terms of funding, right? Because nobody's just sitting on millions of dollars houses, or everybody would be doing it, right? So I started reading a ton of books. There's a great book called Investing in Rental Properties for Beginners, right? Bought the book because she looked like me and she had dreads, right? Let's be honest. She looked like me. She had dreads. And I was like, okay, so she must have experienced some of the same things I'm going to experience walking into the bank. Are they going to like my dreads? Are they... So I did that on purpose because I wanted to hear the hurdles that she jumped, right? And I just wanted to hear a woman's perspective about it. I bought a bunch of other books. So there's a ton of other books. Credit is King. I bought that from Will Roundtree, and Lord of My Land from Jake. Like, there's just a ton of information out here that you can go do that won't have you reinventing the wheel. That's how you calm your anxiety.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you have to create the wheel. To come up with this thing from scratch, but you don't have to come up with it from scratch. You just have to be diligent enough to go find out the information and make it applicable to your capacity of life. And so I read in Will Roundtree's book that his favorite thing was using other people's money. Well, I was like, well, praise God. How do we do that? Other people's money. I was like, because that's my problem. I don't have the capital. Praise God. How do we do that? So I binge watched it. I binge read that book like it was Netflix. Because I was how do we use other people's money? And then I got a real good dose of credit is king. So okay. So then I had to spend the next probably 6 months trying to figure out how to improve my credit to the point where I could take my little dread looking self into the and say, I need to apply for these mortgages. And then the strategy started to unfold. And then I said to myself, well, all of these banks are different. And so I tell people now, choose a bank and then go into that bank, choose a credit union, go into that credit union, ask them for their blueprint. What do you need from me so that I can apply for this loan? They don't have to run no credit. You ain't got to run nothing. Don't get nobody no social security numbers. Just tell them to give you the piece of paper that outlines what they need. How many bank statements, how many pieces of paper or document from me? What score do you need from me? What do you need me to pay off on my credit if I had some things on there? Right. So just having a conversation. Then I realized that the credit counseling lady at the bank, she was woman too, and she looked like me. So I was like, oh, okay, it's a whole bunch of us here all over the place. So I started to ask her some questions and started again, just padding that plan. And then a year later, I was like, okay, it's time to execute the plan. My last piece of fear jumped off of me when my brother passed. And I was like, I'm not waiting any longer. The fear thing is gone. I'm about to jump. And so I jumped and here we are. 6 houses. Here we are.
Woo! We can like stop the show right now. Like you said a lot. You said a lot, and I hope that you guys took some notes from the things that she said, because she is absolutely 1000% telling the truth. One of the things, and I want to compliment you, Angel, is that she mentioned in here where she said that she comes and like whatever events or different things. If it's a home buying class, she's an investor, but she's still showing up to a first time home buying seminar. Yes. I have witnessed her go to different trainings and just grabbing as much information as she can. And part of that, where I think is helpful through all of that, is the fact that when you go to these events, it's a lot of information to absorb at one time. So they may have told you from beginning to end what you need to do, but it's hard to have just absorbed that in one sitting. So you need to keep hearing this information over and over again. And some of the information, you might not be ready for it. You're just not stage of the process. So as you're going along and you start to hear this information again, it starts to click. Oh, that's what that meant when I heard it a month ago, 2 months ago. So it's so important to continue to educate yourself, read these books, and just start leaning on people and find good people as you're building that team. So Tanya in here asked about a property manager and asking, do you use a property manager?
Good question.
Before you answer that, Tanya, one of the things that we kind of focus on is, and kind of really suggest that, is that when you're starting out, you should really try to self-manage it yourself, anywhere from 1 to 4 units at least. If you can handle more, fine. But initially, you want to focus on managing the property yourself. And I'll let Angel kind of talk about this. But when you learn to manage it yourself, you learn what you're dealing with on the other end of that. So that when you transition that portfolio over to a property manager, because Angel may not want to be a forever property manager, and that's okay. But when she transitions it over, she knows the questions to ask that property manager. She knows how she likes her business handled at this point. She knows what it looks like. So you gain that experience. So can you also share?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are so correct. And Tanya, the question is perfect, right? And Andrea is correct. And for me, originally, when I started, I already knew that I wanted to be able to understand it from both ends. So again, I property manage my properties now, right? But in the beginning, when we first came on, I said I had a goal of getting to 9 properties. So for me, my next level, when I get to 9 properties, I'm going to transition my portfolio over. But that's my goal, right? I got to get to 9, manage them successfully, and then I will transition it over, because it is a lot of work, but it's fruitful work, right? And some of the work, some of the blessing that comes from managing your own properties in the beginning, you can't get anywhere else. There's no for it. There's no seminar for it. There's no live for it. You got to literally be in there and understand what those day-to-day actions are. How much involvement has to happen. What are we talking about? Rents and transactions, and how good are you at it? Like, are you a good landlord? Right? Mm-hmm. All of this is me trying to perfect, am I a good landlord? Am I a good property owner? Am I doing what I need to do to be on the elevated side of the game as well? And so the only way that I can get to do that is to be hands on the process and getting the information straight from the horse's mouth, like tangible, right? Mm-hmm. Just really roll up your sleeves and get in there. Because what it also does is it promotes other questions for you, right? Mm-hmm. Questions didn't think of when you first drew out the plan. When you first created your blueprint, you didn't put these questions on there. They only surface when things happen or when real life experience is happening. And if you are so far away from the process and this thing is already with a property management company, you're just getting phone calls basically about the cleanup of whatever is happening. You don't really understand what's going on. So I would suggest, and again, this is just my opinion, but I would suggest that people, when anybody first starts any process for that matter, especially in this real estate game, that you manage your first 1, 2, 3, 4 properties. If that begins to get overwhelming for you and you start to move at an expeditious rate and you 10 properties deep now, then by all means, get yourself some assistance. But while I was doing that, I was showing up at property managers' events as well. So I already know, different people. If I need to transfer my properties over, I already have 2 or 3 suggestions, right? I didn't show some of their events. I already kind of get a feel for their spirit, because that's important to me. Like, everybody can get to the bag. Everybody has a level of expertise, but I need to be able to jive with people on a real human level. And that's just the HR in me. So I've already identified 1 or 2 people that I think that their spirit is well. And I will be able to entrust what I am creating as my legacy here. I'm going to be giving my baby over, right? I'm all shortly, right? I can't give you this to keys city here and have absolutely no trust in you, right? We can't play those kind of games. So I've already been making myself in interaction with those folks. And before I get there, we are already connected, right? Because this is about building relationships, and women do that well. So if ladies are on the phone here in any way, sis, what you got inside of you is already there. Like, will make this business work for you, make this transaction work for you, is already there. You're already managing households and people's tasks and husbands and children and homework, and you're already doing it, right? You're already equipped with the ability to do it. It's just taking your natural skill of being maternal on this earth and shifting it over into a field where they ain't checking for us. And because they're checking for us, you just slide on in there, do your 1s and 2s. By the time they figure out that you even at the table, you didn't create a table for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And just because you're doing the management piece of it yourself, don't get that confused as like you're alone in the business. So Angel can call me. I've managed properties for a very long time. So Angel knows if Angel has a question or she needs some help, she has the resources in her back pocket that she can reach out to. And that's important when we're talking about building those relationships. So I do want to ask another question. It's probably one of your favorite topics. Not really, but how do you feel about housing vouchers?
So you know what? That was one of my learning curves. But housing vouchers are a beautiful thing. It is a marriage. The housing department, the CMHA, Palmer got there wrong, whatever, those housing, Eaton, whatever. The housing voucher industry they have tenants that
Mm-hmm.
are looking for places to live. On the other side of the fence are folks who have places for people to live. And so the idea of marrying those two things together is beautiful. So the program of it, people try to scare you about it, and oh my God, and they're gonna tear up your property and the process is this and the process is that. Now, there are some woes in it, right? So the process is a little bit longer. It's tedious. It involves a lot of inspection and redoing, and a lot of other people are going to be involved in the process. So is it tedious? Yes. But once it materializes, it's a beautiful thing, right? Now, are you going to have to be on top of that process, which is what I think is best, right? What if I have to do it all over again? And I have two of my properties are currently CMHA housing vouchers, right? The process, yes, it was tedious. They have both materialized. There are both tenants active in both of them. And, God bless the system because I am in a situation now while we're in this quarantine, unprecedented times that CMHA is sending me a check regardless. And that's a beautiful thing, right? I don't have to worry about some of the self-pay worries that you have right now with some of your tenants that are self-pay, and if things are affecting them and having to be worried about that. And I have at least two of my properties that are a no-brainer. Every 28 days, that check's going to get cut. It's going to get dropped in there. I would tell people, if you are going to put your houses on the program, to be mindful of the steps of the program so you could just be as efficient as possible. Because the quicker you can get through the program, the it's for you. So the more you know about it. So here we are again with research and backdrop and trying to figure out as much information as possible. And that's on you. So you find out as much information about the process as possible so that you can walk yourself through it as smoothly and as quickly as possible, because the manifestation of it later is brilliant. It's beautiful. It's brilliant.
Do you have when trying to identify where you want to buy, do you have a strategy around there? Like, you live in this area, so you like to be a certain distance, or can you talk about what your strategy is?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So originally, when the blueprint was drawn up and mapped up a couple years ago, I said that I wanted to be 15 to 20 minutes at best from every property, right? So it had to be somewhere in my general vicinity where I could get to it if necessary. I am not the real estate investor that is going to buy a house in Youngstown and be able to manage it long distance. Now that happens, and there are savvy people who know how to do that, and they have a team of people. Most likely got some property management going on there as well, but that's just not where I am at the moment. So for me, my main three strategies for buying property when I first started here was it had to be 15, 20 minutes away from wherever my residential living was going to be. My budget had to be $60K all in, meaning me buying the house and whatever repairs had to be done to the house, it couldn't be $1 over $60,000, right? That was just my budget. Now, did I hit my budget on most of them? Yes, I may have went over budget on one of them, I do believe, but it was a deal I couldn't walk away from. But I tried to be very disciplined about making sure that they were within the right range for me in terms of location, and that they were in my right budget, even if it was just a beautiful thing and I was like, boom, 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 I love it. If it was 80K, I don't even want, I'd walk away, right? It's just, if it was an hour away, walk away. Just not in my time frame. Like, it had to meet those two stipulations at first for me to even move further in the plan. If it didn't meet those two things, then we keep on to the next.
The key thing that Angel keeps saying in this whole conversation, and I hope you guys are picking up on that, is she had a plan.
Amen.
She had a budget. She wrote it out. She said, I want to be in real estate, and she created it. And you have to think about what that end goal, have that end goal in mind. If you know what that end goal is and what that purpose, it's easier to fill in everything that's in between. So if you're saying, I want to invest because for my retirement when I turn 60 or whatever, then your plan may look a little bit different. Angel's plan is Operation Fire My Boss. So that's a more immediate plan of she's looking for everyday money, but it starts with that plan and really identifying where you're going to invest, how much you're going to spend on that transaction, who's your team, what contractor, what real estate agent. You're going to need a title company. You might not have the money, so you need a lender. Or maybe a partner in the transaction. So these are the things that you really have to think about. And this next question is a big one for people that a lot of people struggle with, is the contractor side. On the women's side of it, typically women are not familiar with the construction aspect of the business. So a lot of times women can actually get taken advantage of during the transaction. And then just that whole in general, whether you're male or female, there's a lot of problems circle around working with contractors. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and kind of what you recommend or some tips?
Yeah. So the contractor part is after funding, people typically move into that realm of, well, then who do I call, right? So then what happens? It's important, right? So you have to figure that part out a little bit early on, because it does impact your budget, right? You have to figure out if you don't necessarily have a link to a good general contractor or a few different people that can make up a Power Ranger of contract, then you have to be careful about what you're buying, right? You can't start buying stuff that's a shell, right? If you don't have that team set up already of who you are already going to go to in terms of who's going to renovate this for you, be able to fix this, be able to guide you through the cost of repair, then you got to, if my budget was 60K, then again, and that's all in. And if I don't necessarily have a contractor or someone that I can get to get these things up to code, then when I buy at 60K, it's got to be almost move-in ready, right? It's got to be very little work needs to be done. You have to have that understanding before you pull the trigger of the buy. And for me, the buy ends up being triggered by the next. Like I didn't do the next buy until the first one or the second one was either complete or in its stages of manifestation. And so you don't pull the next trigger until things happen. And so I started to just go again. I just pull up, right? So when I started realizing that people were having events places, I would go to certain events because they would have vendors there. They would have vendors, and I would then start getting everybody's card, introducing myself. And then I would start asking questions of the people who were at these events of, who do you use, right? The best marketing tool out here is word of mouth. The best marketing tool out here is, who did you use? Because you're going to put your name on whoever you use because they've done good work for you. And then I started out that I didn't want to be all over the place, right? I didn't want a bunch of people. I would like to figure out someone that I could go to on a regular. And then you want to have maybe one or two other people who could do smaller jobs, or, so that you don't wear out that one person that's like your guru. And for me, I went to an investment dinner, and a bunch of people there. Yourself was there and your husband was there. And they began to ask a number of the different contractors questions about their work and their process and their cost and how they evaluate jobs. And when Mark began to speak about those answers, he gave the best answers. And that's what happened. I was writing, taking my notes. He gave the best answers. And I put those answers up against the notes that I had from other events and other people and other places that I had went. And these answers were perfect. And then the second thing for me always is, I'm always judging people's spirits, not whether they're good or bad people, but do they jive with me, right? This is all I have. This is my money. If this don't work, then my God, right? So make sure that it works for me. So I'm not necessarily judging people on good or bad. I'm judging whether or not you are going to flow well with me. And I know that I have an expectation that people treat other people a certain kind of way. I have to feel comfortable in that. And so Mark ends up having, who Pyramid Innovation, shots out. So Mark ends up having the best conversation about the process, the cost, how he evaluates jobs, and he didn't get shook on any of the answers that they were throwing out there. And they grill. When you go to these events, they grill contractors.
Mm-hmm.
The bus at contractors, and his information was genuine and it was honest. And I started calling my friends. I was like, hey, I done found a contractor. I was like, I found one for the family. I got his phone number. I'm gonna start giving it out. And so, he did some work for me, and I am now attached to his hip. Like, hey, all the facility stuff now. Like they say, a fuse then blown downstairs. What that mean? So, I'm sure I will get an invoice in a minute. Like, okay, service calls. But for me, it's just about finding your team, building your team, and figuring out who's going to jive with you. I started building my team with just my agent, right? I couldn't believe how much information was out there. And then I decided that I needed a whole team to help me through this. I couldn't do this by myself. So I needed a team. And so I found my agent first. Shouts out to Sharitha. And I was like, all right, where we start? And then I started building. I put an inspector on the team. I tried to find a contractor. I got a lovely broker now. Shouts out to Brickhouse Realty, who's done so much work for me. And my baby, my Ball Avenue, just literally came in and just took that project over. And these people are now on the squad. Like they squad now. Like you, I hope you don't try to get rid of me, honey, because I don't know how you here now. We family now. So your team is important. That Power Ranger that you build is important. And then going back to the plan, it's a moving document, Andrea. That plan has to be revamped. There's things that I would do differently. There's things that I've learned, and I would revamp the plan, but it's a moving document. Building your team and revamping your plan are two things I hope everybody takes away from this is build your team and revamp your plan, and then simply jump. Just jump, make a decision. Indecisiveness and fear will hold you in a place where you are never going to elevate, and you have to be able to elevate. So you have to jump to be able to do that. And if money is your issue, then you got to figure out how to use other people's money. Get to the bank, get your credit. Figure out how you can get approved for a mortgage, right? You can get a pre-approval letter. Take that pre-approval letter. Find you an agent, right? Get really close to your agent. Start figuring out what market you want to be in. Drive around those areas in the middle of the night on July the 4th, on holidays. Jumping, cracking. That's what I did. I drove around areas to see what it is. What was the temperature like on these particular days? So I can see if I'm buying a house that's going to be somewhere I got to keep sending the police. Like, sending people over here. Are they breaking into houses over here? Just different things that you learn by just understanding your neighborhood, right? So this is something that you got to hands-on do. And while you're building your team, ask them a ton of questions. Right? Ask them a ton of questions, get the best answers, revamp your plan on a regular, and then figure out where your funds are going to come from. I did it multiple ways. I'm very honest and transparent. Many people know. I took money out of my 401k. My 401k was sitting there collecting pennies on the dollar, if you will. Right. And so I decided to go in there and take some money out and buy a property. You put $1,000 door on a property and you get yourself $12,000 a month. The return on it is impeccable. It is nothing like my 401k. I didn't get $12,000 a month on my 401k, and my 401k been sitting there for 20 years. Right. All right. New strategy, sis. We're going to bust that down. We're going to go in there. And that's how I bought 2 of the houses, actually. I mean, let's just be honest here, because people want to know where the money come from. I bought 2 of them by going into my 401k. Not everybody's going to want to do that, Andrea. And not everybody's going to be encouraged to go and bust down their retirement. But for me, I got a new outlook on what my retirement is going to look like. So I had to create a different plan for myself. Yours may be different. People on the phone, they may be different. But I'm just telling you that there's options.
Yes.
You can take all of it. You can take some of it, and you can get yourself some capital, and then you can build from there. I took all of the money that I had saved up for myself, and I started to create down payment funds for these houses, because there's costs. Come on, let's be clear. play. There's costs. You're not going to walk to the table and walk away freely, but you're going to be investing in a tool and an environment that's going to be able to pay you that money back and then some. You start renting out houses for $800, $1,000 a door. You start making yourself cash flow. And if we playing chess and not checkers out here, then there's two kings on the board. Credit is king and so is cash flow. So how do we get to both of them? And from my experience, one begots the other. Your credit's going to get you cash flow, and your cash flow is going to help you build more credit. And we're just going to burr that thing up and repeat. This is not recreating this wheel. We're just going to repeat that simple strategy. And for me, that's the end game. I'm just going to repeat that to a place of level one where I can fire my boss, repeat it again, where I can living and have some retirement in my future. And then I'm going to repeat it to the third level so I can max out my quality of life. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out different ways to enter the market a little bit. I kind of like the agent aspect. I'm going to dibble and dabble and figure out what that looks like. I like loan signing documents, right? They paid this lady $100 to come help me sign my loan document. You could pay me to go do that. So let me research that. Let me figure out how to get in that. There's all kinds of ways, my friends, to get into the real estate game. So if you want to invest in real estate, you just have to figure out what's good for you, right? And so I'm going to figure out some ways that's good for me. Once I get enough houses, I'm going to figure out how to get in there another way. Because you can send me somewhere for $100 and help somebody for 30 minutes sign some loan documents. I can notarize that for you. Okay. Right. So it's just figuring out what the plan for you. But I would tell people, write your plan out and revamp that thing constantly. Figure out your bumps and your bruises and revamp that thing constantly, and then find the money. And it ain't got to be yours. Find everybody else's money. The bank got plenty money. Figure out a way to get your hands on the bank money. Now you're going to have to come to a little bit of something, but figure out a way to get your hands on somebody else's money to make an income for yourself.
Angel, I feel like you had all of this bottled up inside.
Girl, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm here to help and serve. I'm telling you, because too many of us, especially women, especially Black women, we are not involved as much as we should be, because we think that life has been coined for us to not be at this table, right? I'm encouraging y'all to get at this table, and you don't have to know nothing about it. I am an HR professional by trade. I knew absolutely nothing about real estate. I went and I seek and I find people who know about stuff that I want to know about. And then I show up and I edify the people around me. If there's people in your circle that know more than you, you edify them. You edify them, and then you rob them of all their knowledge. You rob them of all their knowledge, and you start putting a plan for yourself that matches your personality, matches your energy, matches the way that you want to move about in this world. The industry is just a pool of water, right? I can take you to the water. I can't make you drink. You figure out how thirsty you are and figure out what plan to quench that thirst. And then you get in the game. But you can't catch the ball if you ain't on the field. You got to get in the game. Right? You got to get, and don't be scared.
Yes.
Have I lost some dollars? Yes. Did I bump my head? Yes. Did I go over budget on some things? Yes. But my wins outweigh my losses. And that's all that matters. My wins outweigh my losses. And the losses that I did take, Andrea, I won't take those again. Not quite like that. Right? Because I've learned from them. Everything I've learned from those losses. And so I'm going to revamp the plan, insert those losses, identify why they happened, create a plan to make those losses not happen again. Will I take a loss? Yes, but it won't be that one. I won't take that one. Yeah. The biggest thing that I've realized is that the plan is a moving document. Just keep revamping that thing.
So I don't want to keep everyone too much longer, but we did have a couple questions that were the same. And they asked, what would you have done differently?
Great question. So the first thing I would have done, and I'm not sure if necessarily different is it is. I would do differently. So I bought houses my first go round that had points of sale. Now that might not mean anything to anybody, but points of sale are these violations that happen on property that certain suburbs make you take care of when you become the owner of the property, right? They're just violations that have to happen. City of Cleveland, for instance, doesn't have a point of sale violation. So for me, my bane of existence right now are my point of sale violations that I have on my houses. So if I would do things differently, I evaluated my point of sales a little bit more intently. I would have dug into those a little bit differently. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have bought the houses that have point of sales on them, but I may have analyzed the point of sales a little bit differently. And I learned a lot about that actually from your husband, Mark, who in a quick 20 minutes walked around Ball Avenue with me, which everybody knows is my baby house, and looked at houses just across the street and was just like, where are the point of sale violations at, right? And how do you assign a cost to them? Are they concrete? Are we talking about roofs? Are we talking about having to knock out whole garages, right? And so I would have done a better job of being more proficient at point of sale. Is one of my things. My second thing is I wouldn't have let so many mortgage companies run my credit at first. I went in at first looking to see if I can get pre-approved. And so I went a bunch of places and let everybody run it. I would be more cautious with that if I was telling somebody else to do it. I would pick your bank first or pick your credit union. And shouts out to the credit unions. They dealing with more local money. You have a better chance of getting some of that money if that makes sense to people. But pick your credit union, for instance, and then go into that specific credit union and ask them what their criteria is. So be very cautious with your credit. So if that would be two things that I would do differently, it would be the execution of my credit and how it was ran and the analyzation of points of sales on the houses and locations that I bought. Uh-oh, I don't know if you freeze or I'm not sure. Well, Andrea. Uh-oh, you back? I got
you. Okay.
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
It's locked.
I can hear you. You want me to log out and log back in? I don't know if you can hear me. I can see you too. Can
you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, I had bad internet connection. So we're still live. So thank you for that. I do have one more question for you, and that is, the coronavirus taught you anything?
Say that one more time, Andrea.
Has a coronavirus taught you anything?
Woo, my God. The coronavirus has taught me that you better have more than one income stream. That is for me, that is for everybody. It has taught me that multiple streams of income is not a luxury. It is a necessity in this world. And if you do not have those streams of income, whether it be two, whether it be three, they say 7 is a good number, but it is what it is. But you better have another way, because what I did learn, like my job this year, they called me during the corona and said I had went from full-time to part-time. So let's be honest, that would have freaked me out to no end a year ago, right? Because my life was predicated on what my paycheck was every other Friday and down to the dollar. I need to spend every dollar of it to maintain my lifestyle. When they called and said that I was going to be part-time, I was like, thank you, God. This is why you got to jump when it's time to jump, right? That's why you can't be fearful, folks. You got to jump, because you don't know how much time you have before you're going to have to execute. And I was at the bare end of finalizing CMHA contracts and getting people into the vacant houses that I had already on the market. And then that income starts to become not a luxury, but a necessity now. It replaces what they took from me, right? What they're be able to get. So the corona is definitely given me a ton of life lessons, but in particular to real estate itself and my plan of using real estate to elevate my own life. Streams of income are extremely important. Making sure your credit is extremely important. So if y'all live in some places now, pay your rent. Don't be playing with your landlord. Pay your rent, right? Kind of games. I know they talking about y'all can't be evicted, but don't play them kind of games, right? And constantly work on your credit. So if you're not constantly working on your plan of action, revamping that thing, and constantly working on your credit, and if you want to get really savvy, always be adding something to the pool, right? What are you reading for motivation? What are you doing for your own self-development? And it ain't got to be in real estate, but you got to be elevating that mind some kind of way. You got to be changing up that soul some kind of way and recharging yourself. So working on that credit, getting your plan constantly in motion, because what Corona has decided to tell us is that in a heartbeat, everybody is equal. We all quarantine. We all in the house, no matter what you drive, what you wear, where you work. If you make six figures, if you make $2, we are all even. So you better figure out what's going on in your world and how you're able to sustain yourself if this world decides to not play ball right. And without my rental income right now, I'm not sure if I would be so calm, cool, and collective right now. I know that there's a couple of checks that have been deposited. I'm able to keep my plan in action. I'm able to keep reinvesting in the process. That's another good thing. Come on, y'all. You got to continue to reinvest in the process, right? Continue to get stronger in what you understand about the process. This becomes something that you got to work at. And if you work so hard for somebody else who can call you and tell you, we only need you half time now, and in 12-hour days, are you shitting me? You playing now, right? Y'all playing with my abilities. And so I'm going to start working that much harder for myself. And I encourage everybody else to do it. So get a seat at the table, right? And if ain't nobody pulling out no chairs for you, don't worry about it. Show up. And if you look, they ain't checking for you. So you can really show up and ain't nobody. I didn't went to investor meetings and I didn't sat down at the table and $50 plates. And they like, and so company you with? And I'm like, I'm not with a company. They like, well, what do you do? I'm like, I work in HR. They like, well, why are you here? I'm like, I'm in my ones and twos. Like, what are you doing here? Right? They're not checking for us, right? They're not. So if you don't have a seat at the table, you make one, sis. You get yourself at the table. You make one. You don't let nobody move you from your plan. You take a copy of plan with you, pull it up on your cell phone. When you start feeling shaky and you pull up at the valet and you don't want to walk, put your plan up on the screen and say, no, we on step 2. And step 2 means I got to go in here and get this information because they got 6 vendors in here and I need 6 business cards because I'm over here trying to make my Power Ranger team. So I need to get in here and figure out what they talking about. They saying stuff I don't know, write it down. Don't be embarrassed about stuff that you don't understand. Write that down. And then you go figure it out. What does that mean? What does it mean to buy and hold? What does it mean to house hack? What does it mean to sign a contract? What does it mean that I need a title company? Who gets to choose the title company? How much money do I need for down payment? You need to figure all that out and you can do it at your pace. Run your race, but pull up, show up.
Angel, it has been wonderful. You gave so much knowledge. I appreciate you sharing and being so open to everyone on here. I hope you guys pulled out a notepad because everything that she's sharing is absolutely true. A plan. You want to start that operation, fire your boss. No matter, I know a lot of information is out there that you don't need credit or cash in cash. That's not saying that you can't start your plan off without these things, but you, as she said, that plan is for, you're always working on it. You're always improving it. You're always making yourself better. You continue to read books. You continue to go into events and you build a strong Power Ranger team that she mentioned around you. Put good people around you. I want to make it with people who interest, worried about their paycheck instead. So We do, but if you guys didn't know, Mark and I do have an ebook. Actually walks you through this to get started. Everyone has different tolerance. My risk is so I mean, that ebook will kind of help you build that plan and put it together for you. So again, all month, the month of May, Angel and other women and other resources I'm making available to you guys. Here at Brick House Realty, we are an investor-friendly brokerage, not just buying your first home. You should buy that with a plan in place, not just for a roof over your head, but what is that long-term plan, wealth building plan? So we help you identify that. So people call us and ask us questions all the time, and we want to hear from you. So, all right. Well, thank you, Angel.
You are more than welcome. I wish everybody greatest success. I would encourage everybody to jump over their fear hurdles because I know it's scary. But if you write your plan out and you keep reevaluating your plan, it will kill some of that noise. And money always speaks for people. So I'm just going to leave you with a mathematical quick equation. Right? Because it really is just this simple. You buy a house, right, for $40,000, $50,000, right, and you put $800,000 rental property for you, which means you're going to get paid that money. That's going to be somewhere between $10,000-$12,000 a year for you, even if you have a mortgage on that home. Right? You're going to have $500 mortgage on, let's say, the $50,000 property. You're going to put somebody in it for $800,000. You're going to cash flow $300 to $500 of profitable money to you. Right? So don't be scared about the mortgage part. Because at first I was like, well, what am I going to do with all these mortgages? Right? Now, I'm not saying go get 10 mortgages, but what I'm saying, understand the concept is real and it's easier to obtain than you all think. Do not let this world scare you into believing that you can't do this. Right? So peace and blessings.
She just kissed and blew off. She's sitting there now.
All right. I'm sorry, guys. I got this internet issue going on here. So
I appreciate you, sis. Thank you. I'm honored to be in your space. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Again, we do have that ebook. I'm gonna put the link down in the comments as soon as this ends. It'll help you get started. It'll help you build your plan, especially if you've been on the fence about investing in real estate. It talks about your risk tolerance. Everyone is at a different risk level. So it'll help you do that. It'll help you get started building your team. So, all right. Until next time.
All right. Love y'all. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.